Alex, it's good 3 points at the weekend. Particularly good game management in the second half.
Yeah, I think we spoke a lot about coming back from going a goal down. You know, our record over the last few years really has been particularly poor. So I think that's the last 2 games we've managed to do that now. We're 4 points out of 6, undefeated since we came back off the break. So yeah, I think if we got certainly the decision we should have got in the first game as well, which would have been the penalty, it gave us the opportunity to make it 3-1. We could well be sitting with 6 points, which would be a great return for us coming back. So yeah, pleased, and especially, like I say, coming back in the manner which we did. And like you say, I thought second half we managed the game really well towards the end.
This is a really busy time of the season where fortunes can change. You can have a really good Christmas and go up the league, or conversely a really bad one and go down the league. Up against Rotherham, who've lost their last 2 home matches and conceded 3 goals in both games. How do you see this one panning out? Because I don't think they've won for a few games at home.
No, they haven't. You know, but they've been a team which is capable of pulling out the odd result. You know, and what I mean by that is obviously they came here and managed to win the game. I watched the game back yesterday and the day before, and I'm not quite sure how we didn't manage to win that game. You know, I think that was one of our best performances since I've been here. The dominance we had, the amount of chances we created. And the game that they did win after that was Sheffield United at Sheffield United. So I think it just shows you what this league's about. And I think it shows you that on any given day, if you're not quite at it, that any team's capable of beating you. You know, and the one thing about Rotherham, they'll work their socks off, you know, and I think that they'll make it a difficult game. I think particularly at home, they're a hard team to beat. So we need to go there and we need to try and perform as well as we can, and we want to keep this run going. You know, we want to add another 3 points to the board, get ourselves away for that sort of bottom area and start looking up the table. It's a strange season. What are we, 5 points away for the relegation zone and 5 points away for the playoffs? So, and I still think that we've got much more to do, you know, in terms of where we would like to be. So in that respect, that gives me optimism, and the fact that we're so close still to the playoffs, and I still think there's marked improvements still to be made.
When you've got so many games close together, do you look at each game in isolation, or do you look at them as a series of games and think, well, I'm going to have to rest some players at some time?
No, I look at them in isolation, but what I will say is, if for instance there's 4 games in a batch where it's like 9 days and four games or whatever, then obviously I would have to look at it as a collection of games, but more out the fact that how do we keep everybody fresh, how do we keep our intensity levels where we want it to be, and make sure that we utilise the squad as best we can. That will come to my attention at some point. It doesn't happen that often, but I think once you go into that, maybe if you go into double back-to-back weeks where you're playing midweek, the last 2 games in particular, I think you need to make sure that you're fresh and you're ready.
Jacob Brown back in the team last weekend, worked tirelessly as a wing back and then pops up and scores. There can't be too many forwards that you've known that will just go and play any position and always put in 100% shift.
Yeah, I've been quite fortunate with a lot of the squads that I've had that have had versatile players, you know, and I do like versatile players because, like you say, when we need to probably maybe plug a space that's been a problematic space for us, or we add somebody to the team who allows us to play in 2 different manners, which means we can fluctuate how we want to play within the game. Do you know what I mean? So like guys that are tactically very good at playing both positions, and Jacob, yeah, like I say, I was delighted for him to pop up, you know, because it was a bit of a sort of selfless task that he done at the weekend, doing that job for us. Obviously we all know he wants to play up front, but as you say, that does allow him to go and hit the box, and he popped up at the vital time to get the goal. So, and the one thing with Jacob is, you know, he's going to work up and down that side tirelessly. Unfortunately for us, we ended up that 3 our right-siders were missing. You know, we've had Harry Clark, Dijon Sterling and Ben Wilmot, who have all played there, and all 3 of them were missing for the game. So yeah, it was sort of needs must at that point.
And Liam Delap's scored 2 and 2 now. Do you think that's just because he was lucky that the ball dropped for him, or do you think he's now getting more to grips with the Championship?
I don't think you could say it was lucky, because I think that certainly the goal against Bristol was anticipation, because he gets inside his centre back, you know, so I wouldn't put it down to luck, because he needs to read the fact that Ty's going to flick it inside, and then he's got to land in the right position, and he's got to make clean contact with the ball. I think what he probably would have done maybe a month ago was try to take a touch, because I just felt probably a little bit ago that we were trying to walk the ball into the net, whereas when you just land on it, get your strike away, hit it low, hit it hard, test the keeper, make him work. Ultimately, they're the ones that normally end up in the back of the net. So, no, I think we've got to give him credit for his anticipation and like I say, just getting over the ball and guiding it towards goals. So yeah, I think that 2 goals is good, obviously, for him in the last 2 games, and even Jacob as well popping up with the winning goal. So yeah, a lot of food for thought.
You've been ill. There's been an illness in the camp. How are we with the illness and injuries?
Yeah, I think we're okay. I think we're starting to get a few bodies back now. I think that injury wise we should be hopefully getting to a better level over the next sort of week or 2. Illness wise, I think it's rife up and down the country with everybody, whether you're involved in football or not. I just think that obviously it gets exacerbated by us because when you can't make a game then it gets highlighted. But yeah, I think doctors are running out of antibiotics everywhere, so but yeah, it is what it is. So if we've got people unavailable, there's certainly been other teams before. We played Bristol the week before, they had Zach Viner and De Silva missing, so yeah, I'd imagine this weekend's sort of fixture list there'll be some bodies missing through illness.
So you won't have a plethora of players to pick from?
Yeah, but we're not bad. We're not bad. There has been a couple off this week. I'm hoping some of it will clear up before the game, but there's every chance that between now and the game ones will get unwell that I'm currently unaware of. So yeah.
And this time of year you can probably make or break people's Boxing Day with a good result. So
yeah, but you could have said that last week about Christmas, Ange. So I knew you were going to try and pile that on me. What I would say is Christmas Day's coming up and we've just won the last game, so that's pleasing. We want to win the next one. We can't be satisfied in the fact that we've won a game and well, that's great, because it doesn't really matter. We don't win the next one. We need to go and push on now. So yeah, I get your sentiment.
Well, Merry Christmas and thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, obviously you look at Rotherham and most people would say when they move up a division they're perennial strugglers, which we've seen. So they will go into this game with one thing in mind, which is obviously we want to retain the status. So it's not going to be an easy ride, is it, particularly at home?
Yeah, I think we're still early in the season for that. I think that, what are we, 23 games, which is halfway. So I think Rotherham will be looking at just now. I think these next 10 games for everybody is vitally important, and it will determine where you're going to fight for. So in these next 10 games, wherever you are in the league just now, if you can do well in the next 10, you put yourself in contention to potentially fight for playoffs, because there's that little between the teams in the league in terms of points difference. And if you struggle in the next 10 games, you can find yourself for that last 13 matches scrapping about that bottom area. So we understand the importance. I think Rotherham just now are in that bottom bracket with a lot of other teams. But you've got to look at the resources and things that they've got. And it makes it doubly difficult for them to retain their status year in, year out. So yeah, they'll fight and scrap for every bit.
You'll know all about them because obviously you've already played them once. We move into that area where we're going to have the repeat fixtures. Does that help that you obviously played them once and you know the strengths and weaknesses and the other opposition you're going to come up now having played them once?
Not really, because I think that the goal changed the game, didn't it?
Yeah. Because
when they scored early, it allowed them to sit behind the ball. I don't think that they'll be as passive as they were in that game, and I don't think that was a conscious thing. I think we played well and we pinned them back in and we created good chances. But I've watched about 4 or 5 of their games since, and certainly at home they're on the front foot. They want to try and get up against you. I thought against Bristol they were good, and Bristol counter-attacked twice and scored 2 goals in the first half, but Rotherham had the bulk of the game at that point, even if you look at the stats.
So you feel with maybe the home advantage, if you want to use that word as home advantage, they will play different and set up differently, do you see?
I think they'll be aggressive in their play.
And as we move forward, Alex, as you say, you've got this break now like between today and Monday. Are you going to have the players in training and easing themselves through, or would you give them a slight break on for Christmas Day? Is that the way you'd look at this fixture as we approach it?
I think it's not necessarily this fixture. I think we'll do whatever we deem's better to get the players into a good space to make sure we're ready to win the game. What we haven't lacked this week is we don't lack any prep time, do we? It's 8 days between the last game and this game, so our prep for the game will be pretty much done, and is pretty much done. We've done a bit of work today, we'll do again and a bit of work tomorrow, and then I'll take a view on Christmas Day.
But you do go into the game with momentum after that victory last week, don't you? Really, in terms of, and that's a big factor, isn't it, going into this period, Alex?
Yeah, and I think what's really important is where the players are mentally. You know, because I think winning that game was important. I think we felt as if we should have won the Cardiff game. And I think to come back twice in 2 matches and make sure we're undefeated since the break, because we spoke about after the break, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, because if we're sitting here and we've not picked up any points, we'd be saying the break arguably has been a bad thing for us. I would look at it at the moment and suggest it looks as if it's been a good thing so far, but we need to keep that going. We need to go and win the next game.